And hello, one and all, and welcome to my late edition for my Monday Night Raw review for June 6, 2016. We're going to take a look at everything that took place on Monday night's edition of Raw. I apologize for the late review. I was only able to watch Raw yesterday due to Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So yeah, without further ado, overall my thoughts on this week's edition of Raw. I thought it was noticeably better than last week's edition of Raw. I was not a fan of the Memorial Day edition. I thought there were a number of enjoyable things on this show, some things that I didn't enjoy, but for the most part, I was able to sit down and enjoy what I saw. Was it the greatest? No. Was it completely atrocious? No. So for me, it was an average show. But without further ado, let's take a look at what took place. So we had Raw kick off with all 6 of the Money in the Bank ladder match participants standing on top of ladders in the ring. They pretty much went back and forth with each other on the microphone. Jericho got in his verbal spats. Owens said that he's going to win the contract, and Ambrose said he just wants to fight everybody. And then eventually the segment ended with chaos. A big brawl broke out, and eventually Teddy Long would make his surprising return, and he said that he was there to plug, the return of SmackDown. It's going to be airing live on Tuesday nights. He said he wanted to be in charge, and he wanted to run it and make the matches that he would want to see fit. Eventually, Stephanie would come out. She would interrupt Teddy and said that, "What are you doing here? And you need to just leave and get out of here." And then tonight, Stephanie puts all of the Money in the Bank competitors in matches against one another. They had Jericho versus Cesaro, Ambrose versus Owens, and Del Rio versus Sami Zayn. Overall, I thought the segment, it was okay. Could have been better. It came across as really scripted and forced. I didn't really like how they started off with everybody on top of ladders. I mean, it just felt kind of unnatural. I mean, why would they have to go all the way up and then just to start fighting? I am really looking forward to this Money in the Bank ladder match. It wasn't the best way to kick off Raw, but it was what it was. Got through the segment, so what more can you say? We then had Chris Jericho versus Cesaro. Enjoyed this match. Thought it could have been better, but for what it was, I thought it was a solid match. I was really glad to see them focus and highlight the power, the strength of Cesaro, the way he was able to pick up and suplex Chris Jericho over the ropes. That was really nice. Also, Cesaro was able to hit the swing on Chris Jericho and able to lock in the sharpshooter, which eventually caused Jericho to tap out. So it was great seeing Cesaro get a good win over a credible opponent like Chris Jericho. Especially making him tap out helps to build Cesaro's momentum heading into Money in the Bank in 2 weeks. So, what more can you say? Cesaro with the tap out win, highlighting his strength, his speed, his ability in the ring to do whatever it takes to win the match. Right guy went over here, so what more can you say? So, it was all around solid. We then had these really awesome props to WWE's production team. These really awesome video packages. One for Seth Rollins, talking about his journey to becoming WWE champion, talking about the Shield, his days in the Shield, and losing the title and having to rehab. And this was a really solid, I think it was a 5-minute video. They also did one with Roman Reigns later on in the show. I think they need to do more stuff like this. This really got me hyped for Reigns versus Rollins. It completely erased the bad taste in my mouth that last week's segment left. That was just awful. This right here, this was solid build, and it really got me behind more so Seth Rollins. He's the one that, he was stripped of the title. He never technically lost it, so in a way, he is still the champion, you could argue, and it's his title that he wants to reclaim, and he will do anything and everything that it has to take. So I would really hope they'd go with the double turn in 2 weeks at Money in the Bank, that remains to be seen. I doubt they'll do it, but it would be great. But this, props to WWE's production team all around. This was 2 tremendous video packages, and like I said, good stuff all around here. We then had Rusev versus Jack Swagger with Titus O'Neil commentary. The match itself was okay, but I really liked the ending of this. I liked how Rusev threw Jack Swagger into Titus O'Neil, which allowed for Rusev to win via countout. It was smart. It was a cheap heel tactic, a good way to, further this program between Rusev and Titus O'Neil. Eventually, Titus and Jack Swagger would cause Rusev to scurry from the ring. And I actually am looking forward to seeing how Rusev and Titus O'Neil face off with one another at Money in the Bank. I think it could be a solid match. Put two big guys against one another, and you have them go at it. And yeah, it's nice seeing Titus get the spotlight, considering what happened several months ago with getting fired, or getting suspended and whatnot for 60 days. So and I think he'll be a good opponent for Rusev. So I enjoyed the way this match ended. The match itself was what it was, but I really liked what they did at the end. We then had what I thought was some great stuff. This was John Cena. He made his way to the ring to talk about what happened the previous week with AJ Styles and the club attacking him. AJ Styles' big heel turn, and it's officially announced that it'll be AJ Styles versus John Cena. Cena talks about the way that the crowd was salivating and seeing, Styles and Cena in the ring together for the first time. It was a dream match scenario, he said. And Cena said the only other person that he felt that kind of electricity with was The Rock. And in the end, Cena called out Styles. He wanted to know, why did you do what you did? Styles said he did it because he had a plan. He wanted to get into the ring with Cena, shake his hand, and punch him in the face. Styles says Cena offends him. He says that he can't wrestle, and Cena's like, I've heard that. I've heard it time and again. You won't be the first person. You won't be the last person to say that to his face. And Cena pretty much called Styles a failure because he worked 20 years to get to the Royal Rumble. He failed. He failed at his 2 WWE title shots. And instead of coming back and working harder and stronger, he said, you took the cheap way out. That's what Cena said to Styles. And Styles said pretty much that he had nothing left to prove, that he's wrestled all over the world, selling out the Tokyo Dome and wherever he's went. He's been a credible champion. And he says that Cena, Cena can't go anywhere. He's only been in WWE. He doesn't know what it's like to be outside of that bubble. Eventually, that Styles says that's what makes him so dangerous. Cena says, well, it's not going to be Cena versus Styles. It's going to be Cena versus the club. Eventually, and then I like this. Styles says, every time somebody goes up against Cena, you have to get the shovels out because Cena's going to bury them. And Styles says that the reason that he has Anderson and Gallows with him is to ensure that his head will be above ground. So I really like that quick mark, that quip right in there, that the buried line. And then Styles and the club would surround the ring. It looked like they were going to attack Cena. Eventually the New Day came out to make the save, which I thought was smart because you're going to be building later on in the night to the club versus the New Day in the main event. So it made sense for them to come out and make the save. Really looking forward to AJ Styles versus John Cena at Money in the Bank. Will be a tremendous match, to say the least. So what more can you say? I thought this promo segment was solid. It hit the nail on the head. It accomplished everything that it needed to. We then had Enzo and Big Cass versus the Vaudevillains. Match didn't really last too long. What I liked about this was the way that the match ended. Simon Gotch Aiden English, tossed Enzo into the ropes in a similar manner that he did at Payback, attempting to give Enzo Amore another concussion. This set Big Cass off. He was livid. He was fired up. He was pissed off. And eventually he took it to Aiden English. And eventually this led to the disqualification. So the Vaudevillains were able to enrage and sense Big Cass for the way that he saw how the Vaudevillains were treating his fellow partner, Enzo Amore. And so your winners by DQ were the Vaudevillains. I thought it was a smart ending. It made sense for them to use a similar tactic in order to enrage Big Cass. And I like the way that Big Cass just came off unhinged. We've seen this before from Enzo and Big Cass in NXT. And I think if you make what I'd like to do is have Enzo and Big Cass versus the Vaudevillains for the #1 contendership, say at Battleground. I think that would be, you could really build that matchup, saying as how the Vaudevillains have always had one up over Enzo and Big Cass, and they've always been able to get inside their head. And I think you could eventually have Enzo and Big Cass win and pit them with an eventual showdown against the New Day. So I liked what we had here. And eventually, after this match, Teddy Long and Stephanie were backstage, and it was announced that we will have a fatal 4-way tag team match at Money in the Bank. It'll be the New Day defending against the Club versus Enzo and Big Cass versus the Vaudevillains. So that should be a really good match, a good addition highlighting all 4 of these tag teams at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So really looking forward to seeing that match take place. We then had Alberto Del Rio versus Sami Zayn. I thought this was a solid match. What these guys were able to do in the ring with one another, I thought was good work. I was disappointed to see Sami Zayn lose here, after the way that Del Rio had treated him, with the previous backstage segment earlier on in the night calling Zayn a pero and a paper boy. But this was good work in this match for the amount of time that they were given. It looked like Zayn was going to hit the haluva kick, but Del Rio was able to get his boot up. Del Rio was able to get Zayn on top of top rope. Looked like he attempted to go for the double foot stomp, but Zayn was able to counter out of it. But eventually, Del Rio was able to kick Zayn in the head and eventually able to hit the double foot stomp for the victory. So I'm not too upset about Sami Zayn losing here. He is the underdog after all, and I do see big things ahead for him. And he did beat Sheamus in order to qualify for the Money in the Bank ladder match. So a loss here against Del Rio doesn't necessarily hurt him in any manner. In my opinion, it makes him more of an underdog-like character. He has to fight for every opportunity that he gets, and that's exactly what he's going to do in 2 weeks at Money in the Bank. Then after this, we had Dean Ambrose versus Kevin Owens. It was an okay match. I've kind of seen this match too many times in the past. Kind of don't want to see it anymore for a while, but they went out there and they put on a short but I would say solid match. Ambrose was surprisingly able to pick up the victory after hitting. He was able to reverse out of the pop-up powerbomb attempt by Kevin Owens and hit Dirty Deeds for the win. Afterwards, Ambrose would get up on a ladder. It looked like he was hinting at reaching for the briefcase that was hanging above the ring, but Kevin Owens would come into the ring and knock Ambrose off the ladder. We then had a segment between Charlotte and Dana Brooke. They got into the ring. Charlotte said she wanted to apologize, and she said if her father was watching, she was truly sorry for the actions that she committed 2 weeks ago. And when she said he was dead to her, she said she meant it professionally. Natalya and Becky Lynch would eventually come out. They both tried to get inside Dana Brooke's head and say that Charlotte is manipulating you. She's just using you. Eventually, she will kick you to the curb. It looked like Dana Brooke might be thinking otherwise of aligning herself with Charlotte, but it was eventually a ploy only for Charlotte and Becky Lynch to sneak attack from behind Becky and Natalya. So it looks like at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, we might be getting a tag team match, Charlotte and Dana Brooke versus Becky Lynch and Natalya. I guess that will be all right for what it is. I'm waiting for Sasha Banks to return on Raw and eventually begin her journey to becoming the WWE Women's Champion. I think that is what the long-term goal should be at SummerSlam, so this might just be a stopgap between now and SummerSlam. We'll have to wait and see. But the segment itself was all right. I didn't have any problems with it too much. So that looks to be the direction that we're heading in for Money in the Bank. We then had stuff with Tyler Breeze with Fandango versus R-Truth with Goldust. I watched this on DVR, so I just skipped through it. Don't really care too much about that at all. We then had a nice video tribute for the late, the great Muhammad Ali. Rest in peace to one of the greatest athletes of all time. At the age of 74, he was truly an icon. He was truly an inspiration to all, a pioneer in boxing and in the world in general, in this country. So just want to say rest in peace to Muhammad Ali. So nice video package right there. We then had AJ Styles and the Club versus the New Day. This was fun action all around. Good, solid main event match to end Raw. Early on, before the match even began, the New Day was in the ring. Anderson and Gallows eventually attacked Big E. He would be rammed headfirst into the steel steps. Eventually, Kingston would eat a big uppercut from Gallows, and Woods was able to take it to AJ Styles until eventually Anderson was able to hit the bicycle kick onto Xavier Woods onto the ring apron, and Styles grabbed Woods off the apron and hit the Styles Clash on the floor. This eventually led to the match becoming a 3-on-2 handicap match. So Woods was taken out, and it was Big E and Kofi Kingston. They fought valiantly, but the Club was able to hold off Xavier Woods and Big E in the long run. Kingston he looked like he was going to go for the SOS. He got a 2 count right there. Eventually, Kingston was distracted by Anderson, and Styles was able to hit the Styles Clash on Kofi Kingston for the victory. After the match, Styles and the Club were beating down Kofi. Eventually, Cena came out to make the save. So that's how we ended this week's edition of Raw. Overall, there was some stuff that I did enjoy, some stuff that I didn't. I thought it was an average, solid, but unspectacular edition of Raw. And if I had to give this week's edition of Raw a grade, I would give it a C+. So C+ is the grade that I'm giving Raw for this week. Let me know down below your thoughts and opinions on the June 6th edition of Raw. Always enjoy getting that feedback. And yeah, like I said in my previous video, I will be back with my live Raw reviews. There will be no scheduling conflicts with any sports games or whatever. I will be back this upcoming Monday for my live Raw review on Google Hangout at 11:15 p.m. So look forward to that. And of course, I got my NXT TakeOver The End review. It will be up by Friday at the very latest. So content coming to this channel will continue to. And once again, thank you all for watching this video. Please click that like and subscribe button for more video content coming soon. And I will see you guys in my next video. Till then, guys, peace.